I'm Zane Says, and I'm joined by.
Kuda-Kwashé, artist, rap, singer, songwriter, producer, Afro pop, Afro soul, Afro fusion. I'm a versatile cat, basically.
What brings you to town today? Where have you been at?
Yeah, we've just been at the fashion show at the Conduit Club in Covent Garden, London. Well, Covent Garden, Covent. I never know how to say that, and I've been here for what, 20 years? But y'all know what we talking about. Conduit Club, Covent Garden. Y'all got to check it out. The fashion show. It's crazy. Great atmosphere in there, great people.
So you say you're a musician. What have you got coming up?
Okay, so right now, what we got coming up, so rolling out the album, album number 2, Sunshine City Spirit. So over the summer, we dropped the first single, Crazy, featuring Dorthea Flo. Shout out to my producer, Jack V, main producer, collaborator.
That title, Crazy. What made you come up with that?
Man, Crazy, that's, something that's been around me for years, because with me, I'm one of these people that it's obvious that, there's always been something different, about me. And I stand behind that, bold, larger than life, type of personality. And I've had a lot of flack over the years, people come for me, try to, when you're different, people will come for you. People come for what they don't understand, what's outside of the frame of reference. So they always try to reel you in, put you in a box. Or one thing that's personally triggering for me, because there's a good chance that I'm neurodivergent, so I'm hypersensitive, is when I get the mixed message, when I hear the words, oh yeah, sure, you can totally be yourself. But the energy in the room is saying, but if you could be just like everybody else, if you could just be yourself, but be like, be like this. When people try to reshape what fits and what suits them. So, Crazy is a track about being unapologetically yourself. I mean, if you come in and, you got a good heart, you got good intentions, it takes all sorts of people to make a world. So for the misunderstood, for the ones that have been, called crazy, maybe for those of y'all, if you're listening, if you've been called crazy, maybe you just saw clearly, you just saw differently. You just saw what everyone else didn't see. You just saw ahead of the curve. So this one is for you. Crazy can actually be your superpower. That's, could be the key thing that shapes your gift.
How long have you been creating for?
Creative, awesome time, as long as I can remember. I mean, ever since I was 13. I mean, first sounds of music came to me when I was about 6 years old. I've always loved it. And then at 13, I actually started to write.
Do you remember what the first thing that inspired you was to actually pick up the phone?
Damn, believe it or not, heartbreak. As a matter of fact, heartbreak. I mean, if at the time that I started writing, I look back now and I'm like, if I had the confidence, for instance, to kind of express myself, especially when I was looking back in the school setting, it's my first love and egg on my face, not literally, but I guess in the sense of that, not having that confidence and, being overlooked and all. So I've always been the underdog. So
Do you feel like picking up the pen gave you a sense of confidence? It definitely could from within.
oh, for sure. Picking up that pen, right there, it's like, helped me build that confidence, from within. And that was my proverbial sword, as, the underdog. So it started with, fighting to get my voice heard, but it gave me that purpose to fight to get, other people's voices, heard, the ones that are different.
What gives you the most satisfaction about people hearing your music?
I mean, the main thing I'd say is when people come up, when they approach me and they tell me, hey, your song or your songs got me through a rough time or inspired me to give me the confidence to do something that I've always wanted to do. Of course, all good intentions. I always, I always think back to, for instance, a friend of mine from way back. When I released my first album, Casanova's Comic Book, I remember, I got a beautiful message from her saying that, that album got her through a rough time when she was in hospital. She was pregnant with a second child, and there was some, health complications that, she was kind of fighting at that time. So hearing that album got her through that rough period, those are the things that remind me and other, artists and creators as to, why we do what we do.
Because you're an empath and you care about how people think and feel, and you put that intention into your music.
Yep.
Do you feel that that affects what you do outside of music too? So,
A bit, yeah. So, there's parts of it that, for instance, if I, even talking to somebody, that hearing their story sometimes, teaches me a lot. For instance, I mean, especially if for a moment in time, I put myself in their shoes and, even if I haven't lived that experience, I feel those emotions as if, they're my own. And so that, kind of provokes that thought, what would I do? How would I handle this situation if that was me?
What keeps you alive?
Oof. I guess, with that, uh, she's right. I mean, my mama says that, I've always been stubborn and strong-willed. And so that thing, I just don't give up easily. I mean, for me, giving up is way harder than, than trying. I mean, I'm, uh, you know, relentless, determined if nothing else. So with that, it's like starting from fighting, my own personal things, it turned into me, stepping into that purpose of fighting for others. So if I give up, I'm not just letting myself down, but I'm letting, my loved ones, family, my closest friends, and of course, all the people that's following me, that's, supporting me. I call you guys my warriors. So giving up, it's like I take that responsibility. So if I give up, then I'll let y'all down. So believe it or not, you may be going through a hard time, but, choosing to trust me to lead that charge and, be that voice for you and fight for you also keeps me going. So thank you, all my warriors. I appreciate y'all, each and every one of y'all.
What would you recommend to someone that's going for a tough time but doesn't really know how best to deal?
I mean, tough times come in all different flavors, but the general thing that I would say, speaking from experience, I've seen my share of tough times, for sure. I just usually don't talk about them and get specific. It's very few people that get to see that. So first thing to remember is, tough times don't last, but, tough people do. And, I guess I don't know how you deal with the tough times, but sometimes those tough times, if you kind of channel it, properly into what you want to do. For instance, the creatives I can talk to, sometimes them tough times, could be that power source that, you could channel all that pain and make some of the best, the greatest, most powerful, most thought-provoking, most emotive, art that changes people's lives, starting with your own, but it then changes other people's lives that are touched by it. So yeah, that's, with that, tough times, they come and go. Pressure, makes diamonds. So that, as far as how you handle it, I'm not here to play God, so I leave it up to you as to how you handle it. But I can certainly tell you how I've handled mine. I've kept going. I've kept fighting. And just remember that sometimes, with the tough times, some of them could be leading you to some of your best, your greatest times, if you're able to stay the course. And the other side, one thing that I stand firmly on is, on the other side of those tough times is some of the most amazing, extraordinary experiences, waiting for you. You get to look back and you say, wow, I made it through that. I did that. I fought through. And one thing that I said, when I sat down on, I'll shout out to Mind Over Matter, the TV show, is one day your story will become somebody else's survival guide. So whatever you've gone through, if your why is big enough to fight through that, I promise you it's not going to be in vain.
Do you have anything coming out that we can look forward to?
Yeah. So October 1st is the next single off the album, In Those Eyes, featuring Maya Azucena. And this is, this will be the anthem that is advocating and standing up for women who have suffered and survived domestic violence, which is why I teamed up, with Maya, who's not only a prolific, award-winning indie artist, but she's a humanitarian. And this is a cause that she's very passionate about too. And we're fortunate to have lots of people, particularly lots of women who can speak, share their experiences with domestic violence to, raise awareness on this. And In Those Eyes, dropping 1st of October, that is exactly how we start off with Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So this is going to change a whole lot of lives.
Brother, I appreciate the time.
Nah, Zane, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. See, I'll stay tuned. And stay tuned for the album, Sunshine City Spirit, coming November 1st. Keep it locked.